Hello, my name is Paul Boag and you are watching First Impressions, a series from the wonderful people at Balsamiq that gives my first impressions of different websites that have been submitted. Today we have an interesting one. We have Rockville City Hall. Now, bear in mind this is the first time that I'm really looking at this website. I've just pulled it up in a browser in front of me. And I've got to say, I think this is going to be an interesting one to discuss. The reason that I think it's going to be interesting to discuss is because it is a very content-heavy website. At least I'm guessing it is. Most kind of government websites have got lots and lots of content from lots and lots of departments, partly because they have a very, very broad remit and a very, very broad audience. And this creates some unique problems. And actually, there are lots of websites like that have to appeal to a large number of people and have got a lot of information that they need to communicate. So, for example, a university would be another great example of this. And actually, much of my career has been specializing in these very content-heavy websites and how to go about dealing with them. So, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this particular website and look at some of the challenges that are around creating content-heavy websites and websites that appeal to a very broad audience. So this is the City of Rockville's homepage. Now, there's quite a lot as we scroll down this page and have a look at it that I want to say just about the homepage. One of the first things to understand, especially about government websites, is that essentially they're a utility, okay? So they're not a website where you have to sell something, okay? So they're quite unique in that regards. That means what they're really about is facilitating people that want to complete tasks. People want to do something on their website, so they need to facilitate those tasks. And I have to say, at the moment, the City of Rockville are actually treating their website pretty much like any other website. So they're really not focusing so much on the task that somebody's wanting to do, but rather on the things that they want to say. And that is a mistake. And one of the mistakes that I see a lot on content-heavy websites, the attitude becomes, what do we want to say, rather than what do people want to know? And in terms of putting content online, there is an attitude of, well, someone might find this useful, so let's put it online. So, as we look at the City of Rockville homepage, what we get here is essentially a collection of things that the city council want to say rather than meeting the needs of what people want to do. Now, that said, there are some exceptions to this. So down here, we've got some things that people might typically want to do. At least some of them. Pay my water bill, pay for tickets. Those are pretty good. Recreation registration, I kind of see where they're going there, but we'll circle back to that kind of thing later. So they have made some efforts. You know, recycling and trash would be another big thing that people want to do. But then they go into all of these different, things like city news. Who gets up in the morning and says to themselves, today I want to go and see what my city news is. And even if you do that, do you go to the city website for that? Probably not. You'll go to a local newspaper. And actually, this doesn't really help very much, except for a very small number of people that are particularly politically aware, or there's particular issues that they're driving. But it's given far too much priority. And I see this as like a universal problem on many, many websites. Lots of websites you visit have news front and center on the homepage, but in truth, very few people are interested in your news. You only need to look at your stats to see that. Okay. Also, again, you've got the social media following that we've talked about on previous videos. And at least these ones are kind of consistent in style with the rest of the site. But even so, in this particular case, who follows the city council, on YouTube or on Twitter? There's not a clear use case here. And it's not also, there's no explanation about why you might want to do that. If it said something like follow us on Twitter for, recycling collection days changes or, public events or whatever else, then maybe that would motivate me, right? The newsletter, again, it says stay up to date with what's happening in the city. Not enough information there to create a compelling case for me to use it. But these are all minor and relatively picky points. My main problem with this site is that when I arrive on it, it's not structured around my mental model, right? It's not structured on how I, as a citizen, am thinking. So I might come to this website to get access to a local sports centre. So where do I look for that? I want to go to a local sports centre. Now, chances are that's going to be under recreation registration. But is that really the right wording? Is that kind of how you should think about it? Is that... It doesn't say anything about sports. It doesn't, it's not matching my kind of mental model. And then as I click through to it, whoa, here we go. This is just utterly overwhelming. All right. Equally, let's go back and say, okay, so I want to find out what day my trash is going to be collected. So surely that's under recycling and trash. Let's see if they actually do this, right? So the number one thing people are going to want to know when they go into this is, when's my trash going to be collected? Okay, so it's telling me what I can get, which is good, but that's not what I'm after. Can you see it? I certainly can't. I've got to have my car out by 6 a.m. Great, but what day? I can't see it anywhere. So I think my point here is we've got to start from a different premise, all right? When we create these kind of very content-heavy websites, we need to start from the premise of not what do we want to say or, let's put this online, somebody might find it useful. Because I'm sure that somewhere the answer to my question is on the website, right? But finding that answer is very hard. So instead, what we've got to do is start with those tasks. What is it that users want to do? You need to write a list of every single task that someone might want to complete on your website, right? You can talk to users to find this out. Talk to people that answer the phone and take customer queries or citizens' queries in this case. Talk to anybody who has direct contact with the public. Look at your data as well and your analytics, and you will find all of these tasks people are coming to look for. So, for example, what are people searching on? When is my trash collected? Let's go to that. Oops, an error occurred. Okay, so that's not great, but you should be collecting these bits of information as well, okay? Because all of these will tell you what it is people want to know about your city. Now, you will end up with a massive list, okay? And not all of those things in that list are going to be equal. Some things are going to be a lot more important to people than others, all right? So then you want to carry out what's called a top task analysis. And there is a great article on a list apart, top task, where the top task analysis is explained, okay? Got the list apart website's running slow at the moment, but let's not worry about that right now. Here we go. So this is a great article that explains about how to do top task analysis. So it talks about how to collect all of those tasks and then how to shortlist those into, no more than 100 tasks in total, right? Once you've got that shortlist, you create the longest survey you've ever seen. And it says, basically from the list of different tasks below, select the ones that are most important to you, with, 5 being given to the most important element, 4 to the next, 3 to the next, and so on down to 1. Okay. And then leave all of the rest blank. So you put that up on your site, people can then vote. Now you might think, well, that's a ridiculously long task to complete. And you are absolutely right. Asking people to fill in a survey of that kind of length is quite intimidating, but that is exactly why it works. So instead of somebody looking down the list and going, oh, well, yeah, that's quite important to me, that's quite important to me, that's quite important to me. So then you end up with a kind of wish list of what they'd like. You don't want that. Instead, you want the things that they actually pop into their head that they want to do. And with a list this long, when they're confronted with a list that long, they can't go through every individual item. Instead, they need to think, what is it that I want to do on this city website? I want to know when my trash is going to be collected. So, where's that in the list? And you kind of look down and you find it. All right. And the result of that, once somebody's completed that survey, is you'll get a diagram like this. Okay. And as you can see on this diagram, actually the vast majority of the votes, a quarter of the votes, will probably just be for the top 3 or 4 tasks, right? And even the 3/4 of the votes will probably only be the top 14 or so tasks. So in other words, there's this huge bias towards a small set of tasks. These are your top tasks. Everything else is the tiny tasks. So when you're designing the homepage, actually, there is a relatively small number of things people really, really want to do on your website. Everything else is nice to haves. And it's really important that those nice to haves don't get in the way of the top tasks people want to do. So when you go into recycling for trash, right, a lot of this, the information in here isn't necessarily stuff that you want to know. For example, medical disposal is a relatively tiny task. It's a small number of people that are interested into it. So really that shouldn't be coming above the kind of materials that people can actually recycle and what they can. So the whole of your site needs to be structured around this idea of tasks and helping people complete their top tasks. Now, I can give you an example of a website, a government website that does this really well, and that's gov.uk. Okay, so this is the UK government website. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look pretty. And the reason it doesn't look pretty is because it's utilitarian. Look how much space on your homepage is dedicated to just really a pretty pointless picture of quite an unattractive building, right? That doesn't help people complete their task, does it? Right? It's nothing but fluff. Now, if this was trying to sell you something, then maybe that would be of value. But if we go back over to gov.uk, look how it's all immediately orientated around the tasks that I want to complete. Now, if we go for something like a common task you might want to know from gov.uk is what is the average VAT rate, value added tax, okay, which is a UK tax. So if I just type in VAT, okay, right, VAT, click, okay. So, or if we let's push it even further. What is the VAT rate? Okay, right, VAT rate. So if we click into this, notice what this page immediately does. Right in front and center, it tells me that the standard VAT rate is 20%. Right? Because it knows that's what the vast majority of people want to see. They want to know what the VAT rate is. I typed in what's the VAT rate, it's given me the standard VAT rate. But actually, that isn't the whole answer. in truth, there are lots of VAT rates, right? So for most goods, it's 20%, but there's a reduced rate of 5%. Some things have not got VAT on at all. There are issues around how VAT is charged to business. So those are tiny tasks. Those aren't the main things people want to know. The main things people want to know is about the top level standard VAT rate. So that is the equivalent, right, of making sure that front and center on trash is the days that your trash is collected and what it is that you can recycle and what you can. Not all of this stuff about, backdoor collections and medical disposal and these kind of secondary things that people don't care about as much. So it's about relentlessly being focused on top tasks. The other thing that these kinds of sites suffer from is not only this lack of focus on top tasks, it's this attitude of, let's just add more and more. Someone might find this useful. And of course, the more you put online, the more it drowns out those top tasks. So having policies about the removal of content is extremely important as well. So I'm going to dive in, right, to this. I'm going to take a bit of a gamble. I have no idea whether this will come off or not. But if we go in and say view all events, right, I'm pretty sure that we could probably go back to a previous year and all of the... no, I'm wrong. Previous events have been archived and removed from the site. Good for you. Because that's a common thing I see a lot, is out-of-date content left on the website. Stuff that's no longer relevant to people, right? So you get these stories that are out of date in news sections. All kinds of things like that. Or even within, individual like services, there's out-of-date information. So you've got to have a policy around how you assess content on a regular basis to ensure that it's removed. Now, you remember earlier I was talking about mental models and matching people's mental models. Navigation is another common source of that. So although you're beginning to match people's mental models down here by talking about things like paying your water bill or, paying for tickets and that kind of thing, you haven't gone far enough, obviously, with that. If you compare it with something like the gov.uk's homepage, where there are all these different things that you might want to do, but also your main navigation isn't really centered around that at all. People don't come to the website going, I want to know more about Rockville City Hall. Doesn't happen. People come with a task that they want to do. So their task might be, I want to pay a parking fine, right? So I have to come along to this site and go, okay, I want to do a parking sign. Is that pay a parking fine? Is that under city government or maybe under services? Right, it's probably under services. Okay, permits and inspections, is it under that? In other words, the site is structured around how the city council organises itself rather than around how people think. So now I'm kind of a bit stuck. Crime. Is it crime and public safety because it's a parking fine? Dunno. So now I'm starting to click around and notice how, again, every page I'm hitting here, I'm getting this kind of big pointless image at the top that's not really helping me to complete my task. So it's not fingerprinting. I mean, how if you're looking under crime and public safety, the number one thing that comes up is fingerprinting, right? Well, how often is that something people are going to be looking at? They're going to be looking at, things like, reporting a crime or something like that. So anyway, we were looking at trying to speed watch, maybe paying a fine. Perhaps I can't pay a fine on here. But even if I can't pay the fine, I should at least be told that. You see the problem. And this isn't to pick on the city of Rockville, right? Their website is very typical. It's an underlying problem with these large content-heavy websites that are appealing to a broad audience. They just lay out their stall of what do I want to say, rather than what do people want to know. I'm sure there's a lot more we could say about this site. We could get into the design. We could get into the priorities of content and how it's structured. But I think just that lesson about doing a top task analysis and focusing relentlessly on what it is people want to do, and stop seeing the site so much as a marketing channel, right? But more as a utility that helps people complete their tasks. That's something that's useful for all of us. But until next time, thanks for watching.